And then I just have to make sure this is set up. I try to stream live on other platforms just so I have it in other
Right.
formats. But in order to do that, I use one like Riverside, but then it also I have to double check that it's
Oh,
actually
that's great.
working everywhere else because I don't
That's so
trust
wonderful.
that it's just like, okay, perfect. We know that that's happening. We love that. I think that's happening. Okay. And then YouTube should be going live. I see it's up. And then Twitch is giving me an issue, but that's fine. It's
Twitch.
not a big deal. Yes. So with Twitch, I know it's like a lot of gamers, but
Uh-huh.
there's a whole group of a whole community of people in a segment called Just Chatting that they just do this type of stuff or they do it's just separate from the gaming community. So I'm trying to figure out where the audience will be eventually, if that makes sense, right?
Yes.
And so long form is generally YouTube, which I love. That's my anchor. And then short form's Instagram, but it's hard to have a platform that can go live on both. So with this stuff, I go live, I take it, the recorded version, I clean it up, make it look pretty like an episode. And then I have short form editors that edit it for me for social media. So,
That's amazing. That's what I'm trying to do with I do my own videos, with
mhm.
my brush kit, and the editing part is so challenging for me.
Well, tell me what you need. I have editors that we can just do that. So essentially, you would send your stuff in a cloud. So either Google Drive or do you use an iPhone to shoot?
I use an iPhone, yeah.
iPhone, perfect. So we would just go in the cloud. You would click which ones you want, and then you would press share. iCloud creates a link, and then you would send me that link, and then just tell me kind of what you're looking for, and then I have the editors edit for you, and then we hand it back to you, and then you post it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I what I did was I signed up for Vimeo, and they
Yeah.
have AI. Um, you can edit through the transcript,
Yes.
which
Okay.
is for me because all I do is talk.
Right.
It makes it so much easier. But then when you want to get creative and add some videos together, and I don't know what I'm doing. So
Well, I do. So if you
okay,
want to talk about it more after we're off,
thank
I will
you.
be happy to because
That would be
I
great.
have different packages. It's easy, however you want to do it, and we can get it done for you. Plus, I can add B-roll, I add captions, we can do music, whatever you need.
Amazing. Thank
So,
you.
okay, I love it. All right, deep breath. Ready? Everyone who watches live gets to see like behind the scenes stuff. That's what I always say. So
Yeah.
tune in live. All right, ready? 3, 2. Hey, I am here with the makeup artist extraordinaire, Lori Klein. Lori, I love you so much.
Oh, I love you too, Rachel. So good to be here with you.
I know I haven't seen you in so long. It's crazy. So, backstory is I met Lori, it was 1997. It was I know. I don't even understand how that
I can't
exists.
believe it. We're
it,
both children.
we're babies. And it was the first week The View was on the air. I was an intern. I was early because I have a thing about time. And Dana Goodman was like, "You go upstairs. You're going to intern for the co-hosts." And so I was the co-host intern, and I remember having to drop something off in Barbara's room in her dressing room. Do you remember the dressing room? It
Oh,
changed
yeah.
a few times, but
Yes.
um, and I just saw your smiling face, and you just have this beautiful light energy,
Thank
gorgeous smile, and were always so kind to me. I mean, even as like a little intern where I like was scared to death. I think I like was
We all were.
petrified. So that is the backstory of how we met. And we're going to circle back to this, but I want to talk about what you're doing now because you've created something that I think is so incredibly amazing. It's a makeup brush line.
Yes. Well, I even as people may not know, I was Barbara Walters' personal makeup artist for 29 years. And before that, I did a lot of print work and television videos and private clients and a ton of weddings, sometimes 3 weddings a weekend. And I started my own private label makeup line because I had an idea for packaging, which I never did. But because I did a lot of lessons, it was very convenient to have the product for people to buy for that instant gratification that we all love when we're doing our makeup. And that led to also selling brushes. And recently, and that was many, many years ago, that was like 30 years ago. And recently, my go to brush, I call it my secret weapon brush. It's a short angle brush, was discontinued by my supplier. So I went to all these other, this is what it looks like, everybody. It's just, you wouldn't think that this brush is so special to me as a makeup artist, but it is. So I went to numerous different manufacturers and bought all these samples, and I could not find the brush. So I said, I'm just going to make my own.
I
So
love
I made
you.
my own kit,
Love that.
and it was a lot more complicated, than just, it was, picking and designing every brush and every handle and the color and the logo and the case. And it was so much fun to have a tool for every aspect of doing a perfect professional makeup. And you don't really need a lot of them. I consider myself a really great teacher, and I like to keep things very simple. So it's a brush kit of 10 brushes, um, that there you go. And it comes in this really nice
That
case
case
that
is
I made.
gorgeous.
And I
It's beautiful.
purposely didn't thank you, Rachel. I purposely did not splash my name all over it because I wanted people to have something that they'd really enjoy using, if they travel and they want to carry their brushes with them. And most brush kits have the same hair brushes and they look very uniform. This looks a little different because I chose a hair that I found the best for each kind of application. So, for instance, my powder brush is really, it is a synthetic fiber, but it feels like mink, and
Oh
it
my
picks up
gosh.
exactly the amount of product you need. And when you put it on your face, it just blends, like you don't have to do anything. So I do have my name on the inside of the cover. There
I
you
love.
go. Got to know where it comes from. So
It
anyway, it was fun. It was exciting. And I really like to help women have what they need and teach them, to look the best they can, and it's really a very simple process. So it's just getting the map down.
Do
Uh,
you have tutorials on how to use each brush?
I have been working on that, and
Okay.
on my Instagram account at Lori Klein Makeup, there are a lot of them. My website is Lori Klein Cosmetics, and they will be uploaded there soon as well. So
So, my other question is, had you ever thought about creating your own line of makeup, even if it's just a foundation or a line? Because the way that you utilize makeup is literally like an artist. I would watch you put on makeup every day when you were doing Barbara Walters makeup, and it was fascinating to watch. And it was my first introduction to a hair and makeup team, if that makes sense. And you
well,
did an
I do.
impeccable job.
Thank you so much. I do sell all kinds of makeup, including foundation, like you mentioned. Um, and I don't know if people out there know about makeup manufacturing. There are people that put their name on private label cosmetics in that come in various packages. And the way I started was picking from about six, believe it or not, different manufacturers because I'm very picky. So I buy mascara from one, eyeshadows from another, my foundation from another, and combined all of them to make my own line. Um, I only sold it to people that sat in my chair, for the convenience of giving them personally what I thought was best for them. Now I am going to be selling it on my website
You are?
piece by piece as soon as I get it onto my website.
That's amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
that's going to be incredible.
But I have not gone to, in order to actually manufacture your own makeup and work with chemists is in a very different endeavor.
Mhm.
You're talking about millions of dollars of, manufacturing, and packaging and all of that. And because my life as a makeup artist was so busy, and we can get into that, what
Oh, we're
a
going to.
day or a week like, there was never any time. Barbara she used to get so upset with me. She'd hold up a newspaper with a picture of a makeup artist line and saying, "This should be you." And I'd be like, "You don't understand. I'm with you all the
All the
time."
time.
It's a full-time job to have, a makeup line like any other business.
Hmm. But if you but I believe if you've curated it from other companies and it's passed your test, that it's good enough for me. Does that make
Thank
sense? So
you.
I
Thank you.
totally understand what you're putting together, and I think that
Yes.
completely makes sense.
Thank you.
Um, Going to how you even got into makeup though, because before you were a makeup artist, weren't you a model for like 12 years?
Yes, I was a model with Wilhelmina in the 70s to late 80s. And I also went to art school my entire life. And it was while I was modeling that I started doing other people's makeup just for fun because I love doing makeup. And also started a private label makeup line then just because I enjoyed it, not really as a business of any sorts. And then when I retired from modeling, I had two little girls, and shortly after that, I got divorced. And after trying real estate in New York City,
Oh,
I kind
geez.
of fell into the makeup world. Somebody asked me to do their makeup at a wedding, and the photographer loved my work. And from one wedding, I ended up doing two and then three every weekend. And then I called Wilhelmina and I said, now I'm doing makeup. And they hooked me up with photographers. And every time I worked for a photographer, he'd hire me. And there I started my career. And
Oh my God, that's so beautiful.
it was really fun because I loved having brushes in my hand and I loved making people look beautiful.
And are you from New York City? Like, are you a New
Born and
Yorker?
raised, born and raised in Manhattan.
That is so beautiful. I love that so much. So, when you basically started to follow your passion, which you didn't realize would be your passion, and I think that's the best part, right? Do something that you think is so fun. Were you
Exactly.
scared? Because now that I'm creating this business, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm going through growing pains, and your services are one on one. There's only so much time in a day. Did you get scared about how you were growing this business? Were you fearful about anything, especially being divorced and you have two little girls to take care of?
Oh, it was a really rough time, and many aspects of fear. One, I was not trained as a makeup artist. I was trained as a painter, and I got my degree in the arts from NYU. So I didn't go to beauty school, but I was really good at makeup. So, but I always questioned, do I really know what do I really know what I'm doing? And that imposter syndrome,
Oh,
which I think
so
that
bad.
so many people, especially women, have, no matter how accomplished they are. That's why Barbara Walters named her book Audition, because we all have that, feeling of, are we good enough? So there was a little bit of that. And then, also, where's the work going to come from? You have to have a real trust in something to believe that you just have to keep showing up. I never said no. It's amazing the things that would come into my life. And I would really literally show up in gratitude and just wanting to be of service. I have a funny story. I remember working for a photographer, and the model had tan lines. And he goes, cover the tan lines. So I go in the other room and I'm like, I'm sweating. I'm so nervous. And it took me 20 minutes of like layering different products from my kit. And, I got it done. But if that happened today, it would have been 2 minutes. I would have
Right.
known exactly the product to go to, exactly what to do. And, that's what experience does help with, is all the things that you've never done before and learning the best way to do them.
But I also think having that art degree is why you're so unique because you understand positive and negative space. You understand what contrast is for the face. You really studied the face. And so
Yes.
that's why I think your makeup and the way that you apply it stands out from everybody else because you have a
Oh,
completely different theory about it than other people do.
well, it's so amazing that you should ask that, bring that up, Rachel, because I years ago, I was going to call my makeup line symmetry. Because when I look at anybody's face, male, female, child, whatever, I see parallel lines. I see a graph. The same way when you're a little kid in art school and you learn how to draw from the distance and you draw those lines and they come together to a point depending on where you're standing. So when I teach people how to do makeup, it's all about creating the most symmetry in a face because they've proven through Greek, I forget what it's called. There's a word for it, studying of the face, but the more symmetrical someone is, the more attractive they are. Now, that's not to mean that you have to be perfect looking. Nobody who sits in my chair is perfect. We just want to use makeup to balance and create as much symmetry as we can. For instance, one of my eyebrows is much higher than the other. So when I'm applying makeup, I treat the other one with a pencil or a powder with my fabulous eyebrow brush, and make it a little bit higher. You can make your lips fuller. You can chisel out the cheeks. You can lift the eyes. It's all about keeping parallel lines even and being aware of these things. And that's what I teach when I do lessons. And it is like painting.
I love that. I can't wait to see the videos of you showing us how to apply it and to use the brushes because I feel like the way that you're going to present it is completely different than other people. So I think that's like, oh, I'm so happy that you're doing that.
Thank you.
So bring me to meeting Barbara Walters. How did you come into her life? I think we all have a meeting Barbara Walters story. I'll
Well,
tell you mine. You tell me yours first.
well, I did touch on that whole thing about trusting in something in the universe. And it was interesting because early on when I got divorced and I decided I was a makeup artist, the most important thing I can tell anybody starting out is do what you are. If you're an actor, don't wait around for that big part. Go act in a play, act with your kid, do act. If you're an actor, act. If you're a producer, produce. So I just kept doing my makeup. Everybody was saying, Lori, I have a job for you. And they were trying to give me jobs because they knew that I was trying to build this career and I needed to support my children. And I'm like, no, I'm a makeup artist and I will work as a makeup artist. So I was living on the Upper East Side, and there was this really cute gay guy who lived in my building. And we'd always say hi to one another. And one day we were in the elevator, and he said to me, what do you do? And I said, I'm a makeup artist. What do you do? He goes, oh, I'm a hairdresser. And I said, give me your card. I'm always looking for hairdressers for weddings. He goes, oh, no, I don't do weddings. I do Barbara Walters and Kathy Lee. So he says, give me your card. So he started recommending me to his clients. And then one day, out of the blue, and this was obviously Barbara's hairdresser, Bryant Renfro.
Which, by the way, I can hear him saying all of this to you. I can, like, as soon as you, I was like, oh, I can
Oh,
literally see him saying this.
he was so cute. But anyway, so um, I worked for some of his clients, and then again, somebody coincidentally, I did something very nice to this woman, not knowing that she was a public relations person. She had her own firm. I helped her out with her little boy once at a movie theater, and then by coincidence, and I don't believe there are any coincidences, she ended up being a friend of a friend, and she ended up writing an article about me in Avenue Magazine, which kind of goes to the Upper East Side buildings in New York. And Barbara saw the article and said to Brian something like, "Do you know this person?" And anyway, her makeup artist was didn't show up one day. She was always late, and I filled in, and that's how it all started.
Oh my God, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That is the best story ever. I love that. That's like, and those, how many synchronicities just to get to that space? That's
I mean,
incredible.
one after another after another.
It was meant to be. That's
Yes.
insane. Was Bryant like, do I know her?
Right.
She lives in my building. Oh my God. I
And
love
he had
that
been
so much.
recommending me so he could vouch that, his clients like me. So,
So when you first met her, how were you not shaking the whole time? Because I was shaking.
well,
I could, like, how do you apply makeup when you're like,
well, that has happened to me where I've gotten so nervous where you do start to shake, but not in many, many years since I've um, matured a little bit. But
right.
yeah, and Barbara had a way of making people, you know, um, that intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be very intimidating. I went to her house and, I always watched her specials and I knew who she was, but I've just never really been like overly impressed by celebrities.
Me too.
And
Mm-hmm.
to me, she was just sort of like another mother of the bride to me. And I knew that I was really good at with the mothers because I always made them look fresh and young. And so I just did what I do. And
I
I
love
kind of
that.
let it go and didn't know what was going to happen. Never imagined that I would end up replacing her other makeup artist.
Well, not just replacing her other makeup artist. I remember you would walk with her every morning through Central Park to get to the
Yeah.
show. I mean, that's huge. Just to
Yeah,
have
no,
that time with her.
no, we were very, very close. I remember the first time I took a trip with her, and we were doing. I'm trying to remember. It was a very far ride. I think it was upstate New York. We were doing a woman who was imprisoned, and I'd never been to a jail before. Barbara did many interviews of people in jail. But what stands out the most was being comfortable in silence with someone. And that was, Barbara really respected people who gave her space and her quiet. And, when you're nervous or uncomfortable, the instinct is to chatter. And I could be a really good chatterer. I'm really good at it. I make people feel comfortable. And, as you do, you interview people, you know how to talk to people. But instinctively, I knew just be quiet. And that was challenging for me to just sit with the silence with someone else. And she really appreciated that. And we grew to really enjoy each other and our time together. And we could sit in a car or on a plane and have fun just being there and being quiet. And we both we would love things like we would get sandwiches for the car. We both, for some reason, we both really loved eating sandwiches in the car. We were like, these silly things, or shopping, or eating certain kinds of foods. We actually had a lot of similarities in the things that we liked and the way we liked to do things. And you know, Barbara wouldn't just have the TV on to have noise. She had the TV on to watch something, and that's how I am. I love my quiet. And a producer would come in the car and they chat, 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 chat. You know,
Well, I
um,
caught on to that early on because I met the first time I met her, the first thing I ever learned was never say I don't know. So I came in because I had to give her something and she asked me a question and I said, I don't know. And she said, you don't say I don't know, dear. You say I will find that out for you. And I was like, I will go find that out for you. So that was the first thing I ever learned was don't say I don't know. I will figure that out or I'll find that answer for you. I will get right back to you. So that changed my life in that moment. And then also the silence. I've always been very aware of energy, if that makes sense. So I remember we were in LA because I turned into that girl, right? Because I interned, so she knew me from that. Then I started working for the Barbara Walters special, so she was like, "Oh, that girl Rachel." And then I started working for The View, so I don't even think she knew who I was working for or what I was doing, but she always just knew like that girl Rachel. And so it was just easy for me to travel with the show because I could do both shows and I understood both what she needed from both.
Mhm.
And I remember being in the car service going to Nick Cage's house. Do you remember that? Do you remember going to Nick Cage's house? Do you
Yes,
remember were you in
I did.
LA? Okay.
Yes, yes, I remember his house really well.
With his gigantic butler. I
Yes,
think his
yes.
name was Paul. I
It was
remember
very
talking to
dark,
Paul.
and you walked in and there was, like, this
Yes.
staircase, it was very dark, and he
Yes.
had the great pizza oven, I
Yes,
remember.
the chef made us pizza after.
Right, right.
So in the car, she was going through her notes, and I just as much as I could just held any nervous energy in because I was like, I didn't want it to exude. Does that make sense? I was just like,
Oh, yes.
I'm going to be so fucking quiet because I am literally sitting here watching her read through her stuff and make changes, right? Because she would get questions, but she also like she you don't need to give her questions half the time because she knows where she's going with something. She's done her
Right.
due diligence and research. And so I was just like, I'm literally in the present moment. I'm just gonna not say anything. I will speak when spoken to. And I think she appreciated that I wasn't always trying to chit chat with her, if that makes sense. Now, go ahead, go ahead.
And what you were saying about the first thing you learned about never say I don't know. I mean, how lucky were we to be taught by someone like Barbara? Now, she didn't teach me producing, but she taught me a lot. And she pushed me to go on air. And she pushed me to do segments on The View. The first time I did a segment on The View, I was so embarrassed because you could see my hands shaking.
I mean, I don't know
And
how you can't sometimes because
and
it's
and
there's so
she
much going on.
and this was live, and she just kept pushing me and pushing me and pushing me, and she always wanted the best for me, and she always wanted the best for every single intern and producer that walked through that door. And she would take the time to tell you how to do something better, not because she was scolding you or putting you down, but because she really was a teacher. And she took the time to not just give it a, oh, this is no good, but to say to you, don't say, I don't know. Show up early, stay late, do your work as hard as you can. You know, she would tell
Mhm.
anybody.
Yes, and I loved it, and I didn't take it as, like, an offensive way. I was like, You're fucking right. I should not say like, how else are you gonna learn, though, right?" And I
Right.
didn't take offense to it. I was like, "Oh my god, this is the first lesson I got from her. I can't wait to get more." And I did I mean, many more lessons as we went along, but you and Bryant so your energies are completely different. You're that calming energy, and then Brian's like that, like, high end in your face energy, which is hilarious. It was almost like yin and yang in her dressing room every day.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
do you have a good Bryant story? Who has passed away? Which
Yes.
when I found that out, I was like devastated.
Yes.
But
Oh,
uh,
there are a lot of Bryant stories.
which one can you tell?
Hmm. I can't think of anything it's going to be kind enough.
Then don't worry about it. But I want people to understand. So you would walk her from her house, right, across Central Park into the studio, into her dressing room. And this is for The View. I mean, you had her for many other different things with
Yes.
for
Well,
ABC News and for the Barbara Walters specials,
she
but like
loved
for
to
The
walk.
View,
You know, she was really, Barbara was, you know, really loved to take care of her health. And she had trainers and did Pilates, and walking was really important to her, especially as she got older. So the story, you know, the plan was her car, before picking her up, would pick Brian up, then pick me up, and then we go to her house, and she'd put her sunscreen on and her comfortable shoes, and we'd walk through the park. And it was really, again, that no talking really, maybe a little bit, just, you know, being together, being out. It was just so nice. And then, you know, after she retired from The View, Barbara and I would do that walk just to do the walk. So
oh,
that was really nice.
that's beautiful. Oh my god, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So what I don't think people understand is when you're in that space, in her space, she's working constantly. She's not just working on whatever the next segment is or that show that day, which by the way, do you remember these books?
Oh, yes.
It was always like, "Where's the red book? Where's the
Oh,
book?"
yes.
I think this is the one from LA. I had her sign it
People,
because
I mean, you could, I mean, just your stories alone, Rachel, what you had seen and learned about how Barbara Walters would put together an interview and edit in her head
in her head. Yes,
before it was
absolutely.
even on paper. And that whole process of research, which I'm sure you were a tremendous part of,
Yes.
and the organization of that research and the organization of the cards and
Mhm.
paring them down. And yeah, it was quite.
It was incredible, but you guys would have to do your work around her doing all these things, right? Because you
Yes,
have to talk to somebody through a mirror usually because you guys were in the middle of
yes,
doing something. If she'd have to be on the phone, you'd have to be like or pause sometimes, right? And
yes.
then I don't think a lot of people know this. Yes, there were bookers on each show, right? For ABC, for the specials, and for The View. But if she didn't feel like she was going to get the answer she wanted, you will get a phone call from Barbara Walters. She had no problem calling herself to get a guest on. And I loved that because it
Yes,
wasn't just, hey, let's outsource this to somebody else to do it and rely on them. She wasn't going to take no for an answer if she really wanted something. And she was
absolutely.
absolutely willing to make that phone call to whomever she needed to. And you were in that room a lot of the times for a lot of those phone calls because you're in the middle of doing makeup and hair and trying to do all the things and trying to work together on a timeline too, which I can't even imagine. So if she's in the middle of a call, it's like everybody just just stops and is quiet. It's got to be insane. Do you remember any call that she was on with somebody who was like uber political, important, a huge celebrity that you were like, "Oh god, like don't move."
Um,
Not off the top of your head?
it was just all of that. It was constantly that.
Mhm.
Because it was always working on the next thing. So it was always like hearing about, oh my God, I will never forget we were in, forget where we were when the Monica Lewinsky news broke. Oh, we were interviewing Bill Gates, I think, in Seattle. I think, and I walked into her room early in the morning, and she started telling me what was in the news, and it was just constantly, hearing the latest and what she was working on, and there you knew that there had to be a level of trust
Yes.
because we did hear it all. Early on, one of her colleagues asked me to work for them, and I don't know how I knew to say no because, of course, I was struggling and just starting in my career, and it would have been great to have another client, but I said no because I knew that if I was going to be with Barbara, I needed her to know that I was there
Yeah.
loyal to just her. And that was very, very important. The only time the commotion really got to me was we went to LA in the middle of the night when the OJ trial was breaking, the verdict was coming in.
Mhm.
And we were in this hotel room, I think, watching or backstage somewhere. I don't really remember. It's hard for me to remember all the details of all of it. And I'm standing next to Kaylin, who
Yes.
probably turned that whole case into something else that it would have been. And we're hurrying and we're all just like exhausted and all over the place. And I turn around and I get lipstick all over Barbara's jacket. And she's about to go live. And this has never happened to me before. And there's like a streak.
My god.
And she's like, darling, don't worry about it. Like, I, I couldn't believe it. I was so devastated. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get fired or something. She was like, don't worry.
Oh my
Because it
god.
wasn't important. What was important was getting on there and, reporting on the verdict,
Did she
but
wear the jacket with the stain or did she take
she
the
did.
jacket off?
She did.
Oh my god. And I
Yes.
love that she didn't make you feel any worse than you were already feeling because it's like,
Yeah,
oh my God. Oh my God, Lori, I probably would have cried. That's
yeah,
why she still kept you because you didn't.
yeah.
You kept your composure. You're like, okay, let's
I
do this.
learned to, yeah,
Well, it can be a chaotic life. And the daily thing is you're literally at her disposal whenever she needed you, which I think she appreciated that time you guys gave her. You
yeah,
both were really talented at what you do, you and Bryant. And
thank
to have, I don't think people understand why people have long term hair and makeup artists. It really is not just a client relationship, it becomes a friendship. You become a confidant. You're also like the first line of defense, right? Like you guys were the first ones I met before I even met her.
you. Right.
And generally, like it was you guys that would let us know what the temperature of the room was like, so to speak,
Oh,
right?
yes,
Like, are we in a
yes,
good mood today? Is
yes,
everybody stressed out today? How are we approaching the situation? And I appreciated that. I think everybody did that, like,
yes,
oh, just grab Lori and ask her if everything's okay. Or I would ask you, like, hey, what am I supposed to be doing this? Or like, what am I supposed to be doing right now? And sometimes it was just wait and she will tell
right,
you, just be
right.
calm and it's fine. Even if it was just like waiting for her lunch order. I think when we went to LA the first time, I just got her everything on the menu because I was like, we don't have time to like have her tell me and then go get it. So I was just like, I'm just going to have everything ready so she
Smart.
can pick whatever she wants and then we'll all eat whatever's left over
I kind
because
of
it was just
remember that.
that situation. I was like, I think I got one of everything. What do you want?
Smart girl, smart
Well,
girl.
because we had back-to-back shows too. Do you remember that? Like we were on our feet all day long. It was exhausting. I think I have a picture of her like at the very end of the last show of her just laying in a chair with her eyes closed like this is over, thank God. And then we got in the car and went to Nick Cage's house. So
Right.
it was like it was over for everybody else, but not for us.
But she did get that adrenaline when she was working that
Oh,
just kept her going.
100%.
She, I think like being in front of the camera for Barbara was like air to breathe. She loved it and she was so good at it. She was a listener like no other interviewer. She really didn't just go by the cards. She would listen to the answers and go deeper, and that's what held her apart from other people that I've seen interviewed. And we would watch other people interviewed and we'd go like, why didn't you ask this? Barbara would, and you could just learn so much from her. But I remember when we did the royal wedding, and oh my gosh, it was it must have been like a 16-hour day. And it was midnight and she just wanted to go out to eat and talk about it all and be with us. And just, she was just so excited from it.
Hmm.
But she often, if I wasn't available, she'd say, don't worry, Laura, I'll get someone else. But like, I don't want anybody else doing my job. So I made myself available. And then the weddings, I couldn't commit to long term dates for weddings because I didn't know we traveled so much. And I kept myself available. There were, Brian and I, one thing Brian and I always said, we had a joke about we work in death. In death, we work. Because if anybody suddenly died of importance, we were called in at the last minute. Um, I would be laying on the beach in Long Island with my kids, and I get a phone call. So and so was in a plane crash. So and so was in an accident. So and so just died. And are you available? And I would make myself available
I
because
think, yeah.
I wanted to do my job, and I didn't want anybody else to do it.
And I think that's such a testament to who you are just as a human being and as a professional that
Thank you.
you are always approach it as to how can I be of service? And it's not just whomever is your client at the time, it is to whomever is in the room. Always was just like, let me know how I can help you. And that's how you always approached everything, which I always appreciated because when you're a little baby and you don't know what's going on and you like, you have all these amazing people who've done great things around you, it's like, I don't even know where to start. And to be able to go to somebody like you and be like, what am I supposed to be doing? It was so nice because it just felt like somebody always had my back in a way.
Aw.
And I know it was ultimately to protect her because you don't want anybody around her that's gonna like be a spaz. And so it was great to be able to learn from everybody in that situation, but
But
especially you. I
you
just love seeing your smiling face.
Thank you so much. And I remember how hard you worked. Nobody worked harder than the interns and then the young ones coming up at the
The babies.
beginning.
That's what we called ourselves. I always call them when I saw them at
And
Bill
and
Getty's memorial. It was so funny.
I mean, and the specials, I mean, it was a lot of work. And, when you show up the way you did and nothing was beneath you, you just work. It didn't matter what it is, you just work,
You say yes to
you know?
everything.
Yeah. And that's how you became the producer you are today. And,
It's been
and
incredible. I learned, and going back to listening, because you yourself are an amazing listener. You've always been a great listener. And the way that she interviews people, that's the one thing I tell everybody. Your questions are B. They're option B. Option A is listen. Listen, they'll give you certain things that maybe they've never told anybody before. That's how she got tears. That's how she got stories that nobody's ever
absolutely
heard of because she was listening to what they were saying. And then probably a little empathic in there, right? Like having empathy and understanding. Okay, wait, she mentioned this, but I remember reading about this. Oh, do these two things connect? And she's never talked about this before.
right.
Yes. And it's
Exactly.
fascinating how she could connect those dots empathically because she just understood and listened. And
Right.
I think a lot of people today in this world, we just aren't even listening to each other. We're just spewing it out and we're just not in that space of, hey, maybe if we just listened a little bit more, the world would be a
I
better place.
agree more strongly with that. And there's so much fear and insecurity that it's people go within and they're so worried about, you know, what they're going to say or how they're going to react that they're not listening,
Yes,
and they're not paying attention, and it's a shame.
it is a shame. So now where you are with your business, what's in the future for you? You've been doing this for so long. Like you are impeccable in this business. I mean, people love you in this business.
Oh,
You're
thank
so
you.
good at what you do. Like, what do you really want to do next? What's in the future? Did your daughters have babies yet? Are you a
My
grandma?
There are no grandchildren yet. I have
Okay.
grand doggies, lots of grand doggies. Two beautiful daughters. They're incredible people and really, really good friends. And
Did they get into the business?
well, no, one of them, my younger daughter is a therapist, and my older daughter is an artist. She's a jewelry designer, and she opened a studio, an art studio for jewelers
That's beautiful.
in Boca, Florida. So, but my younger daughter is also very artistic, and we all have that art gene. Um, but for me in the future, I don't know. I just keep working. I keep saying to myself, what do I want? The brush kit was really fun to put together, and I have this big professional brush kit that I carry to all my jobs, and it's a big black zipper case, and I have, oh my gosh, I must have 100 brushes in there, in case I do multiple people. And the only brushes I end up using are the ones that I made now. So I'm really pleased with that. And like I said earlier, start putting more of the pieces that I really love on the internet for sale. I think I have one eyeshadow up now besides the brush kit. And again, it's like a simple thing, like it's a matte vanilla eyeshadow, but for me, it's an essential makeup for everybody because it just makes the whole eye area matte and opaque in a very pale color, and then powder blends better on powder, so you
Mhm.
can then apply eyeshadow over that. And I use it as a highlighter, and I use it as almost like an eraser when I make mistakes. It cleans up the edges. So I have a lot of strong tips and beliefs about makeup from doing it for a long time. So I'd like to help other people with more of those tips, and maybe do a master class or something.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, she needs to do a master class because
Yeah,
you'd be incredible at teaching.
yeah,
I just think that like you're meant to just be around people and teach. And I love how you always are thinking about how can I create value or how can I give value.
yeah.
Um, before Barbara, or when Barbara was retiring, in that moment, do you remember it being hard for her? Do you feel like it was time for her? How is she feeling? Because I know that that's not an easy moment. Like, I can't imagine retiring from doing anything, just like I'll do makeup forever. I completely understand that. Was it a tough moment? How
Oh,
did that impact all of
it
you?
was it was really tough. And I had retired as a model. And that was really difficult because you do tend to identify yourself with what you do. And especially as a young woman walking around with a portfolio, we didn't have digital back then. I literally had to walk door to door with my portfolio.
A book of pictures.
Yeah. And that were not retouched because they had to be hand retouched in the 80s.
So
There
crazy.
wasn't a Photoshop, which is kind of really crazy. Um, but the retirement and giving up that is a very difficult thing. I had a friend who was a professional ball player who retired, and we kind of bonded over that because I really understood what he was going through because you're still young. But I remember Barbara, Brian, and I were out to lunch at the Ivy in LA after doing one of the specials, and she sat us down, and this is way way back. She says, guys, I'm going to quit 2020. And he and I were like, what? It was just sort of, that was the beginning. So she still had the view and she still had the specials, but it was still like, oh my God. And she goes, no, it's not the same anymore. 2020's not the same. It's not really the same kind of interviews. And so that was a transition, but she still did the interviews and they still appeared on 2020. And then she talked about the quitting the view and you know slowing down on the specials, and then of course we call Bill Getty and say, let's do one more. You remember that? Let's
Yes, I
do
remember
one
that
more.
conversation. One more. Okay, one more. I
But
was
it
like,
was
okay.
hard. It was hard. She loved it, and she didn't want to, she I don't think it was hard.
Did she give you guys a heads up? Because that was your life too.
Oh yes, yes, we knew way before when
Okay.
it was coming.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's such
And it
a
was
yeah.
hard for all of us.
Yeah, I think it was hard for everybody because I mean, she was so amazing at what she did, and there's nobody else like her. So she was just incredible. I'm so lucky that we even all got to know her, even in that space. I mean, you were with her for what, 29 years? Like, that's
Yes,
incredible.
will be 31 coming up. Well, she's passed away a year already. But um, for me, the experience of doing all of it, anything that she did, whether it was the view, the specials, so it was always crossing over
Hmm.
with different groups of people. News was very different than what we had so much fun doing the specials. Oh, it's
It really was the most
really
fun.
we really had a great time. I mean, there are so many stories and so many laughs and mishaps. And the funniest thing was like traveling with Barbara. I remember once we were walking through the airport and Bryant wasn't with us, and she always depended on him to get us through. I mean, I traveled by myself. I knew what I was doing, but no, it was Bryant was a guy, so she thought Bryant was gonna.
But he's also very like, this is what's happening. So you could
Right.
trust him with like, we're getting it done.
Right. So she and I are going through the airport and we're rushing because we had switched flights. We were trying to get on early. And we're going through security, and she goes to take her sweater off, not remembering that that was all she had on. And and I looked at her, I was like, Barbara, you can't get a dress. It was so funny. We laughed so hard. And oh my gosh, we had some really great times.
That's so
Those are so
beautiful.
silly, silly little things, but just so much fun.
Well, when people can be their authentic selves in that moment and feel free and trust somebody to be that, right? That you're not going to sell the story or sell it. Like, it's
Right.
such a great space to be in where you can just be yourself and have fun and be happy and live in joy. I
Yes.
know you didn't take a traditional path to being a makeup artist, but for people that want to sort of get into that business,
Hmm.
and there's less productions now, it seems like, right? There's less stuff going on in Hollywood. It's a really tough business to be in. How would you even suggest people start? How do you even
Well,
start in this space?
It's not, there's always work. It's not just, Hollywood, the movies, there's television, there's videos, there's music videos, there's private clients, there's weddings, there's so many ways and places to do. There's catalog shoots, there's magazines. And I never really said, oh, I kind of started in the photographic because that's where my history was from modeling. Um, which of course was very different than doing TV because the makeup, live TV, has to be stronger in some areas and softer in others, but it's too much to get into now. But as far as advising people coming up, I always tell people, if you really want good training, work for a makeup company and they will train you. Companies like Mac, Trish McAvoy, they have good programs, and Giorgio Armani, and the people who start at those counters very often get private clients. People see them, they recommend them, and if you don't know what else to do, that's a good place to start.
Would you ever take on another private client in that same realm of a Barbara Walters, somebody who is in that space every day doing a daytime show? Would you do that again, or was it so almost exhausting that you wouldn't be in that space again?
Uh, it's interesting that you ask. When I started working for Barbara, celebrity makeup artists had a very different negotiation with their hair and makeup people. So I was compensated to for being her personal. Um, I don't know, other programs have asked me to work when Barbara left, but it was felt a little like going backwards for me because it wasn't Barbara. And I do a lot of very um, well known women in the media now privately, but just not for a show.
Okay.
So I do have clients who are in the media who hire me even when they have Zooms and they want to look good, or they have appearances. Um, or if they're going to events, then I go to them and I do their makeup. So I do a lot of that, but working for a network again, I don't know about that.
It was a lot of work. I
It
mean, you
was,
guys worked really hard
it
because you're
was.
the first ones there and the last ones to go, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it was constant. So if people want to buy the makeup line or the brush line, we're starting with the brush line. It's
Yes.
LoriKleinCosmetics.com.
Correct.
If they want to reach out to you to book you, do they book you through the website or are you just through?
You can reach me through the website or DM me on Instagram or Facebook.
Okay, perfect. I love you so
I
much. You're
love you,
so
Rachel. You are
amazing.
so amazing. It's so obvious what learned in this business and every aspect of it. What you've done, you've learned the before, during, and after of production, and it really shows. And you're an amazing interviewer. I am so happy to have been here with you today.
Well, it's
Really.
just how she edits in her brain. I kinda you just start thinking about it and you kinda can figure out how to put everything together, and I think a lot of what I have to do is get some of that B-roll and get some of those pictures, so it's gonna take me a long time to get a lot of my episodes out because you
Mhm.
have to add all those elements, but to me, it's worth it because it's how I see it in my head, and I sort of have to match that. It's just the way that it is, and Bill Getty, one of his last interviews he did, I pulled it for something that I did before the memorial service for him. He did an
Mhm.
interview and he said, find out what you do well and do that,
Mm.
right? Like, do that thing. What is it that you do and
Right.
you're really good at? And I never thought interviewing would be that thing until I started doing it. And I'm doing it with people that I know, like, and trust. Does that make sense? I'm not doing it with people I've never met before. So I'm doing it with people that I've shared space with, that I feel comfortable in to sort of get my like feet under me to figure out, is this even something that I'm good at doing? Is this
Oh,
something that
you
I
are
want to do?
really good at it. You are really good at it.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
You really are. Let me tell you.
Thank you. I
I've been
love you so
around a
much.
lot of interviews and you are really good at it.
All right, stay right here. You're absolutely amazing. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to stop the live feeds, but I want to talk to you off here.
Okay.
So thank you so much for doing this with me. Wait, let me do that outro again. Ready? Thank you so much for giving me your time. LoriKleinCosmetics.com if you want more information on Lori. And I hope that we can like Zoom or talk again very soon.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, Rachel. It's been so much fun.
Thank you for taking the time. All
Bye.
right, pause. We're going to keep smiling.